Welcome back, baseball fans, to the 1973-76 off-season look. Continuing our Tuesday series, looking at data to prepare for the draft, which will be in March of 2025 for the 1973-76 Summer League. This is the fourth installment, looking of Carryon Players, also known as active players. 12 of the 20 players that will comprise the team next year, to see if we can internally improve a player and make them better as part of the drafting process, meaning that they don't add a roster player to their roster. They'll have to replace that empty roster spot vacated with a draft pick to improve a player at the end of the draft and undrafted free agency. So we've looked at 3/4 of the league alphabetically. We're going to begin tonight with Pittsburgh and wrap up the last 8 teams, looking at carry-on guys, the years they're in, and if we can improve them. So we begin with the Pirates, a star-studded team, a team that won the World Series a year ago, 71-74. A team that had the best record in Major League Baseball, IRL, 72, but lost in the league championship. Mr. Clemente passes away tragically, and then 73, there's a change in the outfield because of that, and they have some lean times. They're still a great team, but they're shifting into the Pops We Are Family era by the end of the decade. 73-76 Pirates. These are the 73 guys, the 74 and the 75, 6-4-2. Can we improve anybody? Indicated over here with a highlight, we found one guy, and of course it's going to be Dave Parker. So, and maybe just because he was a luxury item a year ago when Clemente was in right field, now Dave will finally get a chance to be the full-time player, called on with the spot vacated by Clemente's untimely death there. So we got his 73 card. It's a very decent card, 288. And when we look at 73-76, we determined that in 1975, he's got a 541 slugging, third in MVP votes with 25 home runs. 76, he has a little bit of a down year, and then 77-78, he's back into the MVP competition. But 75 Parker would be what the doctor ordered to replace the leadership of Roberto Clemente in that lineup. Of all the players, it's simply Parker. Everybody else is probably already in one of the greatest cards they're going to be in. So Dave Parker is probably going to be improved with that 75 card. Next team is Portland. Now, we want to see expansion teams have lots of improvements, because that's the best way of holding some kind of a nucleus together, is to move them into the future a little bit. Sadly, though, the entire team seems to be in their best cards. Bloomberg, 73. Carbo, 73. Cater's getting near the end. Coggins only has a 73. Montgomery's got a great 73 and 77. Nelly Bryles, you're seeing the picture here. They already are locked in. Art Howe's not much better till 78. McGraw's in there. Sadecki's in his best year. We could double check Sadecki. We'll do that right here on the clock. So I don't remember doing an analysis on him. This is how we do it, is that we look at his 74 numbers and then see what happens in the other years. And 74 Sadecki has a really nice relief starter card with a 341 ERA and .137 whip. 75 and 76, he's on multiple teams. And very indistinguishable. Yeah, he's pretty much, after 74, he's not that good anymore. Sutherland doesn't get any better. Rossello is in a 75 card, which has opportunistic splits for moderate performance. We'll just double check Rossello again. This 259 is a 693 OPS. 79, it's 730. He's got some homers and good spots for the 79 Indians, but unfortunately for Portland, we're going to leave well enough alone and leave the team alone, and that means they're going to have to go draft 8 guys with nobody in their farm system and hope the expansion drafts in each of the 4 years was opportunistic for them. Good luck, and this is what happens. This team won the division 2 years ago. Year to year, There's wide fluctuations, wide variance, because these teams don't have farm systems, because they don't exist, obviously. They're relying on the scraps left over by the traditional teams. The Padres. Couple improvements. One got to look at here is Dave Winfield. I understand that, it's pretty darn flat mediocrity from the time he debuts in his first 4 years in his league. I don't have my eyes on the defense in 76, but he's a 4 throughout 73 to 75. He's a 270 hitter with like 15 home runs year in and year out. Pretty flat performance. Let's just assume he gets better in 76. I'll give him some credit because we know he's a Hall of Famer. And I'll just assume his defense has to get better than a 4 because he's Dave Winfield and he's a Gold Glove defensive player for a nice chunk of his career. But give the Padres credit, most of their dudes they have are in their best seasons, including Randy Jones. Let's take a look at Randy Jones. We're saying he improves, and he might. Yeah. How do you improve on? Yeah. So it's about giving the guy a Cy Young or not giving him a Cy Young. So in 75, he didn't win the award. 76, he did. 75, he's probably better. 75, he's got a 2.24 ERA. It's 50 cents worse a year later when he wins and loses 2 more games, and they give him the Cy Young. 25 complete games compared to 18. That'll make him probably a starter 9 instead of a starter 7 or 8. The whip gets a little better from 104 to 102. He's brilliant both times. At this point, I'm looking at home runs allowed. Is it significant? 2 fewer home runs in 30 more innings. That could be significant in our league. Teams like to load up with power with a chance of getting a dinger when you got an ace out there. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just doing service to Major League Baseball history here by saying, okay, I'll concede 76 Randy Jones is better than 75 Randy Jones because they gave him the Cy Young. Though it doesn't really matter. It's something it's something to do on draft day. If the Padres have nobody of interest in 1976 to add to the roster, let's say the rookie crop of 76 stinks, without even looking at it. Let's just assume it. Then just keep moving Winfield and Randy Jones as far into the future as you can. That gives them 4 more years tacked onto their present contracts. All right. Oh, I skipped a guy. Adrian Garrett. He actually has a lot of thud in a part-time role. So let's go take a look at that one. Yeah, what they did was they made this card of California. 262, 344, 477, 821. So he's got homers on 6, 5, and 6. With 6 homers and 107 at-bats, all against right-handed pitching. So that split, let's look at the split. I'd like to do a little deep dive here when we can. Look at Adrian's 75 splits. They probably don't separate them by team. 470 here, but they're combining all the results. They don't separate them to just the California. Anyway, a lot of home runs for a left-handed hitting catcher. That could help the Padres. Let's move on now. Seattle, a team that doesn't exist yet. They're close. They don't come into existence until 77. Here's the good news. 3 guys in 3 separate seasons, I might add, which is very believable. If you get 2 in 1 year, it's kind of unlikely because you like to bring in a rookie from that year. But you got Ross Grimsley's having his best year in Baltimore in 74. By the way, if you run this card out for 4 years, then you can go into his Montreal card of 78 for Ross Grimsley. Let's take a look at that. Show you how this works. This could be a pretty nice run for Ross Grimsley for 6 years here. You take this 74 card with Baltimore, 307 ERA, 116 whip for a couple seasons. When that card is up, boom, you go in a 78 All-Star, 7th on the Cy Young list, 115 whip for the 20-game winner, 3.05 ERA for your 78 Expos. Hey, think about this, folks. Montreal has a left-handed 20-game winner. How rare is that? My goodness, this team was loaded with right-handed pitching from the 70s and 80s, and yet here Ross Grimsley wins 20 games for him in 78. We also have Tom Paciorek. Why is that noteworthy? Well, Paciorek has some of his best years with the Seattle in the late 70s, early 80s before he's traded to the White Sox. He's a fan favorite up there in Seattle. He arrives in 78, 79, 80, 81. It's 326 in 81, but we find at 76 with Atlanta, he's hitting 290. And that's an improvement. And lastly, Steve Busby. The last year he has reasonable control. He's kind of a wild thing, puts a lot of men on base, and that sort of doomed him later in his career with very high whips. But in 75, he's an all-star both years with a 120 whip, 260 innings. So, yeah, would be really great news for Seattle to keep 3 guys on their team and moving forward as the 77 Seattle Mariners arrive in town next year with that group of guys, whoever that might be. Next up, the Giants. And surprisingly, they are... the Giants are an old team, very old. They still got Marichal. They just got rid of Willie Mays, and they have McCovey. So it's no surprise that all of those guys, including Bobby Bonds, Dick Dietz, Tito Fuentes, are in their best years. Plus Gary Matthews' best year would be with San Francisco. Kind of regresses a little bit. Then he gets better with the Braves later in the decade. Then, of course, Phillies and Cubs and so forth. But everybody's in their best cards. Giants are just going to stand pat. Let's move along. The Cardinals. Here's a star-crossed team that's very talented in an impossible division, which is weighted heavily to the Cincinnati Reds, Pittsburgh Pirates, and then to the Chicago Cubs. Cardinals are routinely the preseason 4th place team in this division, which is a shame because they're one of the better talented 4th place teams you're ever going to find. And there are 4 guys you can get better. First of which is modest. Mike Phillips, I'm not even going to look it up. Just trust me, folks. He goes from a 240 hitter to a 260 hitter. Like I said, it's improvement. It's something to do on draft day if you're stuck. Make him better. Okay, let's move on. Mike Tyson actually has a really nice card in 76. Got to take a look at this. It's kind of a slightly fly under the radar card in a modest number of plate appearances. So when he plays less, and look at the games played, over 120, 40, 50, 20 here. 76, maybe he got hurt or they decided to use him less. He's more effective. He hits 286. That's a career high. 326, 445, 771. He's got 9 triples in 264 at-bats, which is very bizarre. 9 triples. That ratio of triples is league leading. He prorates to 20 of them during his regular season. But good card for Tyson if you need a guy in 76. Most importantly, though, you've got huge improvement. And how many bakes are there? There's one. I think I deserve to put this. Cardinals red, of course, right? Let's put, yeah. This is, yeah, you really want to notice Big McBride 76. So McBride does improve from 74. And he gets an all-star card in 76, folks. Now, he's already a 309 hitter, 763. But in 76, call it 335, 831. My goodness, folks. Again, just like Tyson, mysteriously, he only played 72 games as an all-star. So he got injured in the second half, I guess, to get to the All-Star game with that number of games played. 335, Bate McBride. And then Bob Forsch in 75. Well, really, any Bob Forsch beyond 74 will put you on your starting rotation, pitching on 3 days rest. 74 is sort of relief starter. He's outstanding. But then he begins 75, not 76, but 77, 78, 79. A string of pitching on 3 days rest. So we're saying in 75, give him that ability to go into the rotation, take Bob Gibson's spot, vacate Gibson and just plug Bob Forsch into that spot for the 75 year. That would be a nice offseason for the Cardinals. They've got to do everything they can to hope the Reds, Pirates, and Cubs slip up and that they can get into wild card contention. Couple more teams to do tonight. The Texas Rangers, a surprise team, made the divisional round a year ago as a wild card. And believe it or not, this young team, a nice chunk of these guys are in their best early career cards. Dave Nelson's in his best card ever. Tom Greaves in his best card ever. Hargrove is in a very good card. Doesn't get a better one until he's with Cleveland in 79. Randall's in his best card, as is Foucault and Lindblad. Toby Harris in a great card in 75. He regresses a little in 76. He'll have some great cards at Cleveland, end of the decade, beginning of the next. Peranowski is only cards there. Aside from that, we had to highlight Jeff Burroughs winning the MVP in 74. If you follow the league, you'll realize that we gave him the MVP this past summer with the 73 card, which is pretty much just, we looked at Randy Jones comparison earlier. It's the same with Burroughs. I mean, like, you're splitting hairs here. 73 and 74. He wins the MVP in 74. In 73, he doesn't get even go to the All-Star game. But he hits 30 home runs, 842 OPS. Had a great season with that card. And sometimes it's just the luck you get with a particular Strat-O-Matic card. You know, we saw this with, was it Willie Stargell? Willie Stargell's 71 MVP quality card was hitting 220 for me for a few years. But then we flipped him into his 73 MVP card, and he's hitting 330 for me. 71 card's better than 73, but sometimes it's luck, and I don't know. Can't explain it. But anyway, Burroughs, 73 card was awesome, but we can concede 74 is a little better. He does win the MVP, and the OPS is over 900. I can't assimilate the RBI. He led the league in that, something I can't really put value in. So, yeah, we don't have clutch hitting and all that on these first edition cards. But anyway, Burroughs, 74. And finally tonight, the last team is Toronto. And unfortunately, like their expansion brother Seattle, they don't have anybody till next year. Unfortunately, they can't improve this team until the 77 cards arrive. But they did it differently than Seattle. They actually rode a couple of older players from late 60s, the 69 Mets, Tommy A.G., we got Cleon Jones, we got Ed Kranepool in this team. Got some great pitching, Jerry Royce, Carl Morton. Milt May's a nice hitting catcher here. Mike Lum's in his best year. Toronto has had much more success than Seattle, but we're at a tipping point here where they just can't get any better than they presently are. And they're going to be moving into the Toronto cards. The bad news for Toronto is that they come into existence, which means they get their farm system. And that's not going to be very fertile until the early 80s. So I would say Seattle's needle is pointing up. Their space needle is pointing up. And Toronto's is pointing down presently. So that's it for the Carryon guys. We have looked at 32 teams, at all the players that you can carry on with. And next time when we get together, we're going to take a look at the keeper lists. These are 4 players that the 32 teams have to decide if they want to keep. That's a total of 128 players. 64 players in 2 columns is 128. So we'll start looking at the keeper lists of each team, see how many years of eligibility players have, and if there are options for multiple cards per player. So we'll start taking a look at that when we get together next week, and then off-season look of 73 to 76. Thanks for checking this out. We'll see you next time.